On May 4th, 1970, at 12:24 p.m., America changed forever. Not just for the 13 students shot down at Kent State University, 4 dead, 9 wounded, but for every American who believed that college campuses were safe spaces, separate from the real world. Places where we could still debate controversial ideas without becoming targets ourselves.
Tear gas first started down the Commons, then the guard moved up on both sides of Taylor Hall and forced the kids off the Commons.
After you feed them, then what will we do? Will you ask them to leave?
They've got grievances, they've got demands. There are demands on both sides. We have to talk.
A few kids were throwing sticks and stones, but that was only a handful, not more than 10, 15. And then the guard shot some tear gas up on the hill to disperse the crowd, and the kids picked it up and threw it back.
You don't talk during a state of emergency, Mike. You know that. Come on.
I'm sorry, but
we'll
I don't
talk
want
as
people
soon as
shot.
we get this settled down.
I don't want people shot on this campus, just as a citizen of this campus.
Who wants people
All
shot?
right, but they're sitting quietly.
Okay, will you ask them to leave?
This area immediately. Leave this area immediately.
And all of a sudden I heard the shooting.
13 seconds of gunfire. That's all it took to shatter that illusion forever.
And then I saw people dropping to the ground, and then I fell to the ground also, because I couldn't walk anymore.
More than any other single event, the Kent State shootings would become the focal point of the bitter divisions among Americans over the Vietnam War.
What the investigators have to determine then is whether indeed there was a sniper and whether the guard was justified in firing its weapons, or whether, as some people here believe, the guard, under the pressure of a rock-throwing attack, panicked and fired its weapons indiscriminately, killing 4 people. Ike Pappas, CBS News, at Kent, Ohio.
We're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming. Forget in Ohio. Forget in Ohio. Forget in Ohio.
I'm Nigel Kennedy.
And I'm Roz Ali.
Last episode, we talked about Alvin Toffler's future shock. How too much change too fast was literally making Americans sick in 1970. How people were so overwhelmed by choice and possibility that they started craving anyone who'd make decisions for them.
And Nigel made this provocative argument that maybe our current digital nightmare isn't about technology at all, but about democracy finally working and discovering that not everyone wants the responsibility that comes with freedom.
Well, today, we're looking at what happens when that overwhelm meets authority. When institutions designed for one America, stable, hierarchical, predictable, suddenly have to deal with an America where all the old rules are up for negotiation. Today, we're discussing the legacy of the Kent State shootings.
Every generation thinks their campus protests are unprecedented. But May 4th, 1970 was the day America learned that campuses weren't sanctuaries anymore. They were battlegrounds.
And once that line was crossed, it could never be uncrossed. This is Tunnel Vision, Episode 2, The Kent State Tragedy. We'll be right back.
Legs are here.
Legs, the new super stretch stocky and pantyhose you'll buy right in your supermarket at the Legs Boutique.
Our legs fit your legs. They hug you, they hold you. They never let you go.
Baggy knees are out. Definitely out.
Our legs fit your legs. They hug you, they hold you. They never let you go.
They did it. They got rid of the wrinkles around my ankles. Ooh, they fit. All of me.
Our legs fit your legs. Get your first pair of legs at the Legs Boutique today. Stockings, 89 cents. Regular and all sheer pantyhose from $1.39.
Legs are lazy.
I'm Nigel Nigel Kennedy.
And I'm Roz Ali.
And this is Tunnel Vision, the podcast companion to Down the Rabbit Hole magazine. Each season, we pick one decade and tunnel deep into the cultural moments that shaped how we live today.
Think of it as intellectual archaeology. We're not looking back nostalgically. We're digging for the DNA of our current moment.
Season 1 is all about the 1970s, the decade when America stopped pretending the 1950s were coming back, when everything that felt permanent, social roles, institutions, even the sanctity of a college campus, suddenly felt negotiable.
Each episode, Nigel picks one forgotten cultural artifact from the 70s that he thinks explains something crucial about 2025. Then I spend 20 minutes trying to poke holes in his theory.
Today's artifact isn't exactly forgotten, but I'd argue we remember it wrong. We remember Kent State as a tragedy about Vietnam. But what if it was really about something deeper? What if it was about the moment America discovered that safe spaces weren't neutral ground? They were the next battlefield.
Allegedly.
We'll see about that.
Telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
So Raz, before we get to May 4th, we need to talk about how American college campuses worked before 1970. They operated under this doctrine called in loco parentis.
In place of the parent. You're not about to mansplain Latin to me, are you?
I know better than that. No, what I mean is, universities weren't just educational institutions. They were protective bubbles where middle-class kids could safely experiment with ideas, identity, maybe a little rebellion. The deal was you could protest, you could march, you could occupy buildings. But at the end of the day, everyone went back to their dorms. It was theater, not war.
So what changed?
April 30th, 1970. President Nixon goes on television and announces the invasion of Cambodia.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. 10 days ago, in my report to the nation on Vietnam, I announced the decision to withdraw an additional 150,000 Americans from Vietnam over the next year.
He'd been elected on a promise to end the war, and here he was expanding it.
To protect our men who are in Vietnam and to guarantee the continued success of our withdrawal and Vietnamization programs, I have concluded that the time has come for action.
College campuses exploded, but Kent State, this middling public university in Ohio, nobody expected it to be ground zero.
But why Kent State? It wasn't Berkeley or Columbia.
That's what makes it so significant. Kent State was middle America, working-class kids, first-generation college students, the kind of place where protest was something you watched on TV, not something you did. But that weekend, something shifted. Friday, May 1st, students hold a rally. They actually bury a copy of the Constitution to symbolize Nixon's murder of constitutional principles by invading Cambodia without congressional approval.
Wait, they literally buried the Constitution?
In a ceremony on the Commons.
Can you imagine students today doing that?
But Friday night, things escalate. Downtown Kent turns into something between a protest and a riot. Windows get broken, there's drinking, and suddenly it's not clear who's doing what. Students, locals, outside agitators. The mayor declares a state of emergency and asks Governor Rhodes for help.
So Rhodes sends in the National Guard.
Right, and these aren't regular army. These are part-time soldiers. Your neighbor who does weekend drills and helps during floods. They're trained for natural disasters, not crowd control. And these specific guardsmen, they'd just come from a violent Teamsters strike where they'd faced rocks, threats, even attempts to run them over. They were exhausted, on edge, and now they're being sent to a college campus.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It gets worse. Saturday night, May 2nd, The ROTC building on campus gets torched. This is huge. It's federal property. It's a symbol of the military on campus. And now you've got 1,000 people cheering while it burns, actively preventing firefighters from putting it out.
So now it's not just protest, it's arson.
Right. Governor Rhodes flies in on May 3rd and holds this press conference that just pours gasoline on everything.
Part of the law enforcement agents were hired to drive them out of Kent.
He says, and I'm quoting here, that the people instigating violence on campuses, going from one university to another, are worse than the brown shirts and the communist element. They're the worst type of people that we harbor in America.
Hold on, he's not calling all the students Nazis, right? Just the instigators?
That's the thing. He's specifically talking about outside agitators who he claims are traveling between campuses stirring up violence.
And to use a university, state-supported, but the taxpayer will have as a sanctuary. We are going to eradicate the problem. We're not going to treat the symptoms. And as long as this continues, higher education in Ohio is in jeopardy.
But how do you tell the difference between a student protester and an outside agitator? In the heat of the moment, with guardsmen in gas masks and students throwing rocks, everyone becomes the enemy.
And this feeds right into your thesis about protests getting hijacked.
It does. But here's where it gets tragic. There's massive confusion about whether martial law has been declared. The Guard thinks it has. The university thinks it hasn't. Students think their planned noon rally on May 4th is still legal. So you've got 2,000 students gathering for what they think is a permitted protest, and 100 guardsmen who think they're dealing with an illegal assembly by potential brown shirts.
This is going to end badly.
At 12:24 p.m., after tear gas fails to disperse the crowd, the guardsmen are retreating up Blanket Hill. Students are following them, some throwing rocks, some just jeering. According to witnesses, a sergeant named Myron Pryor turns and fires his .45 pistol, maybe as a warning, maybe in panic. But in that chaos, with guardsmen in gas masks unable to hear clearly, others start shooting too. 13 seconds, 67 shots, 4 dead. Allison Krauss, Jeffrey Miller, Sandra Scheuer, and William Schroeder. Scheuer and Schroeder weren't even protesters. They were walking to class.
They were all between 19 and 20 years old. Same age as many of the guardsmen.
And in those 13 seconds, every assumption about American campus life died with them. The protective bubble was gone. The ivory tower had been stormed. And here's what really matters for today. The aftermath wasn't about figuring out what went wrong. It was about deciding who to blame.
What do you mean?
A Gallup poll right after showed 58% of Americans blamed the students. Only 11% blamed the National Guard. Nixon didn't condemn the shootings. He talked about how, when dissent turns to violence, it invites tragedy. The dead students became posthumous radicals, whether they were or not. And suddenly, every politician in America learned a very dangerous lesson.
Which was?
That campus chaos was electoral gold. That you could take any student protest, paint it as radical violence threatening order, and win votes from everyone who was scared of change. Kent State created the template. Find campus unrest, amplify it, campaign against it. The actual issues, the actual students, they vanish behind a wall of tear gas and talking points. Oh, and here's a detail that brings it all home. 2 people who witnessed the shootings? Chrissie Hynde, lead singer of The Pretenders, and Gerald Cassellay, bassist and co-founder of Devo, both Kent State students at the time. Cassellay said it was the moment he stopped believing in the future and started thinking about devolution. Hynde said it taught her that authority would kill you for disagreeing. 2 future rock stars learning that safe spaces were a lie.
That's haunting. But I'm still not sure I buy that Kent State created this dynamic. Haven't authorities always cracked down on protest?
Not on college campuses, not with soldiers, not in America. Kent State was the moment we decided that students weren't kids to be protected. They were threats to be contained. And once you make that shift, everything changes.
We'll be right back.
Come on, you guys. The sun's already up. It's going to be a golden day.
Let's eat.
Oh, those golden grahams. Oh, those golden grahams. Crispy, crunchy graham cereal, family breakfast treat. Oh, those golden grahams. Oh, those golden grahams. Golden honey, just a touch with Graham's golden wheat.
It's a great tasting part of a complete breakfast for the whole family.
Try those golden grahams and have a golden day.
There must be some kind of way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion, I can't get no relief. Businessman there, drink my wine. Plowman, dig my earth. None will ever own the mine. Nobody of it is worth. Hey, hey.
Welcome back to Tunnel Vision. Before the break, Nigel made this argument that Kent State wasn't really about Vietnam. It was about the moment American campuses stopped being safe spaces and became battlegrounds. So Nigel, I've been thinking about this during the break, and I have some problems with your thesis.
Fire away.
First off, you're romanticizing pre-1970 campus life. Black students at Southern universities faced violence for integrating. Student protesters got expelled, beaten, arrested all through the 60s. This idea of some protective bubble, that's only true if you were white, middle class, and not rocking the boat too hard.
That's absolutely fair. I should have said Kent State was when white, middle America lost its campus innocence. But that actually reinforces my point.
How?
Because Kent State made everyone vulnerable. It democratized campus violence, if you want to put it darkly. After May 4th, being white and middle class didn't protect you anymore. And that's why it changed everything. When it was black students getting attacked for integration, mainstream America could ignore it. But when it's white kids from Ohio getting shot for, what? Being in the wrong place? Having long hair? That's when the whole country had to pay attention.
Okay, but here's my bigger issue. You're acting like Nixon invented the playbook of exploiting campus unrest. Politicians have been running against radical students forever.
But not like this. After Kent State, Nixon did something brilliant and terrifying. He didn't defend the shootings, but he didn't condemn them either. Instead, he talked about tragic consequences and violence inviting tragedy. He made it the student's fault without saying it. And then, this is the genius part, he started appealing to the silent majority.
Middle America, the everyday working people overwhelmed by the social turmoil and tired of chaos all across America. The parents watching their children turning into radicals.
People who were scared of the protests. Before Kent State, campus unrest was a problem to be solved. After Kent State, it became a political opportunity. You could point at any demonstration and say, see, this is what happens when we let chaos reign. Vote for me, and I'll restore order.
But wait, let's be honest here. Some of the post-Kent State protests did get more radical. You had actual bombings, the Weather Underground, real violence. You can't blame that all on political manipulation.
No, but watch what happens. This is where it gets really insidious. After Kent State, you start seeing this pattern everywhere. A protest begins with legitimate grievances.
Like the war or racism or...
Right. But then outside groups see an opportunity. Maybe it's radical leftists who want revolution. Maybe it's government provocateurs who want to discredit the movement. Maybe it's just chaos agents who like breaking things. The point is, the original protest gets hijacked.
And then politicians point at the chaos and say, see, this is what student protesters really want.
That's it. The students protesting tuition hikes get lumped in with the guy throwing Molotov cocktails. The anti-war protesters become communist sympathizers. The civil rights activists become radical agitators. And the beautiful part for the politicians is that it works. Because parents watching on TV can't tell the difference between their kid holding a sign and someone setting fires.
This is starting to sound very contemporary.
Doesn't it? Think about recent campus protests about Gaza and Palestine. They start with students wanting their universities to divest, to take a moral stance. Pretty straightforward. But then what happens?
Outside groups get involved.
Some supportive, some hostile, some just opportunistic. Social media amplifies the most extreme voices. A handful of genuinely anti-Semitic incidents get portrayed as representative of the whole movement. Politicians start talking about chaos on campus and radical elements. And suddenly, we're not talking about Palestinian civilians anymore. We're talking about whether colleges are safe for Jewish students.
Which is a real concern, though. We can't dismiss that.
Absolutely not. But see how the conversation shifted? From should universities invest in companies that profit from occupation to are these protests inherently anti-Semitic? The original issue vanishes. The students' actual demands get lost, and politicians get to run on restoring order to our campuses without ever addressing the substance.
So you're saying we're still stuck in the Kent State pattern?
I'm saying Kent State created a template that's been profitable for 55 years. Find campus unrest, amplify the most extreme elements, paint all protesters with the same brush, campaign on restoring order, rinse and repeat.
But it's not just campuses anymore, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, look at how National Guard deployments work now. Same playbook, different scale. Instead of campus chaos, it's urban chaos. Instead of student radicals, it's Antifa or whoever the current boogeyman is.
That's actually a brilliant connection. The president deploys Guard troops to cities, Chicago, Portland, LA, and describes them as under siege. It's roads at Kent State, but for entire cities. The deployment itself becomes proof the city was dangerous.
And just like Kent State, there's all this confusion about who has authority. Mayors saying no, governors refusing, courts trying to figure out if the president can override them. We're still fighting about the same jurisdictional mess.
With the Insurrection Act hanging over everything like a threat. Play along, or I'll use the nuclear option. Same as 1970. The possibility of federal force changes the whole dynamic.
So Kent State didn't just change how we see campus protests. It created a whole template for using military force against citizens.
For using the threat of military force to win political points. Whether it's students on a quad or protesters in a city, the message is the same. These people are out of control. I'll restore order. The actual issues, war, police brutality, whatever, they vanish behind the spectacle of troops in American streets.
Which brings us back to that question about safety. But here's what bothers me about your argument. It sounds like you're saying students, or protesters, or citizens, are just helpless pawns. That they have no agency. That every protest is doomed to be co-opted.
Not at all. I'm saying the game is rigged. After Kent State, students have to fight on two fronts. They have to advocate for their cause and resist being turned into campaign fodder. They have to be strategic about how they protest, because they know any chaos will be weaponized against them.
Which feels undemocratic. Like the whole point of protest is to disrupt.
And there's the tragedy. 4 students died at Kent State, but politicians have used it to kill spontaneous protest. It made dissent calculate its optics. It turned every campus demonstration into a chess game where students have to think 3 moves ahead. If we do this, how will it play on the news? How will politicians spin it? Will we accidentally prove our critics right?
You're describing a kind of preemptive self-censorship.
Aren't we experiencing a malaise of self-censorship right now? Can you imagine a student group burying the Constitution these days? But what I'm saying is actually worse than that. I'm describing how safety has become a weapon. Remember, the National Guard came to Kent State to ensure safety and order. They were protecting the town from dangerous radicals. But whose safety mattered? Not Sandra Scheuer's walking to class, not Jeffrey Miller's standing 90 feet away.
So safety became code for controlling dissent.
And it still is. When politicians today talk about making campuses safe again, safe from what? Safe for whom? Are we talking about protecting students from violence or protecting the status quo from students?
That's a hell of a question.
It's the question Kent State forces us to ask. Because here's the thing about that Gallup poll. 58% blamed the students, right? But that means 58% of Americans thought it was acceptable for soldiers to take up arms against college kids if those kids are disruptive enough. That's not about safety. That's about obedience.
Okay, but let me push back one more time. You're painting this very cynical picture where all campus protests are doomed to be manipulated, where politicians always win, where students can't create change, but they do create change. The anti-war movement did help end Vietnam. The divestment movement did help end apartheid. Recent protests have shifted the conversation on Palestine, on climate change, on racial justice.
You're absolutely right. Students do create change, but look at the price. Every successful movement has to survive being painted as dangerous radicals, has to endure provocateurs and hijackers, has to watch their message get distorted and their leaders get vilified, and sometimes they pay with unexpected consequences.
Being labeled dangerous and deported. So what's the lesson? Stop protesting? That seems to be the lesson for Gen Z.
God, no. The lesson is to understand the game. To know that the moment you gather on a campus quad, you're not just challenging a policy. You're stepping into a 55-year-old script where you've already been cast as the villain. The lesson is that Kent State gave American politicians a permanent temptation. When in doubt, point at the campus and cry, chaos.
And it works because
parents are always afraid of losing their children to ideas, to movements, to violence. Kent State weaponized that fear. It said, look what happens when we let kids think too freely. Look what happens when we lose control. And every time there's trouble on a campus, that fear gets reactivated. The specifics don't matter. Vietnam, Gaza, climate change, the pattern remains. Young people demanding change become threats to be contained, not citizens to be heard.
You know what's really messed up? The guardsmen were basically kids too. Average age was 20, 21.
Same as the students. That's the real tragedy of Kent State. It wasn't really generation against generation. It was young people shooting young people, while older politicians capitalized on the chaos. The students and the guardsmen were both victims of a system that put them in an impossible situation.
So if they're both victims, who's the villain?
Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the villain is the idea that complex problems have simple solutions. The idea that order is always good and protest is always dangerous. Or that safety means silence.
Or that hierarchies must be maintained at all costs?
Now you're catching on to something I've been thinking about a lot lately. But yeah, Kent State was about what happens when the hierarchy breaks down. When students stop being obedient, when universities stop being predictable, when the National Guard isn't part of the solution, they become part of the problem. It's about what happens when everyone's competing idea of how things should be collides at the barrel of an M1 rifle.
And we're still living with the consequences.
You know what Gerald Cassoulet said years later? That Kent State was when he realized it's us versus them, and they'll kill you. That's the real legacy. Not just 4 dead students, but an entire generation learning that protest could be lethal, that disagreement could get you shot. That's the DNA we're still living with.
not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised.
Who can count all the raisins in Kellogg's Raisin Bran?
I can.
We take juicy, ripe grapes from under the sun, turn them to raisins one by one. Those plump, juicy raisins.
You missed me. Me too.
Are frosted with sugar and mixed with bran flakes. Kellogg's Raisin Bran, the raisiniest bran under the sun.
There's only one of me.
Kellogg's puts more in your morning.
More raisins.
The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on Report from...
So where does that leave us? 55 years after Kent State, we're still arguing about the same things. When is protest legitimate? When does order become oppression? Whose safety matters most?
And we're still seeing the same pattern. Students raise an issue. Outside actors complicate it. Politicians exploit it. The original grievance gets lost in the noise.
But maybe understanding the pattern is the first step to breaking it. Maybe if we recognize the Kent State script when we see it, we can refuse to play our assigned roles.
And keep a healthy skepticism about what we're being told?
Or maybe we're doomed to repeat it forever. A new generation of students, a new set of grievances, the same old crackdown.
That's awfully pessimistic.
Is it? Or is it realistic? How many times have we seen this movie?
True. But every time it plays out, some people still stand up, still demand change, still refuse to be silenced, even knowing the cost.
Even after Kent State.
Especially after Kent State. Because that's the real lesson. They can shoot you for protesting, and students will still protest. They can vilify you, manipulate your message, turn you into campaign fodder, and students will still march. That's not futility. That's courage.
Or stubbornness.
Maybe they're the same thing.
Yeah!
That's our show. I'm Nigel Kennedy, and I'm with Raz Ali, and this has been Tunnel Vision.
Whether you agree or disagree, hopefully we gave you something to think about. Next time, we'll be looking at another artifact from the 1970s that explains how we got here. Something a little less heavy, we promise.
We're going tunneling down the rabbit hole that is the Whole Earth Catalog, a 1971 publication that Steve Jobs called Google in paperback form. 35 years before Google existed. Picture a massive catalog that taught you how to build your own house, grow your own food, start your own business, and basically opt out of every social system designed to hold you hostage. It was the analog internet before the internet, democratizing information, tools, and most importantly, the radical idea that ordinary people could build their own futures without asking permission.
Wait, are you telling me hippies invented the internet?
Well, maybe not invented, Raz, but definitely prototyped the dream of it. And then Silicon Valley took that dream and, well, we'll get into that next time. Until then, remember, question who gets to define safety, who gets to define order, and who benefits when protest becomes violence.
And maybe, just maybe, refuse to play your part in the script.